I never believed in sacred places until Marcus took me to his. We'd been dating for 3 months and I thought I knew him. The way he ordered his coffee, how he laughed at his own jokes before delivering the punchline, the small scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood bike accident. But that Saturday morning, when he picked me up at dawn with that nervous energy radiating off him, I realized there were depths to this man I hadn't even begun to explore. "Where are we going?" I asked, sliding into his truck. The sky was that particular shade of purple that only exists in those quiet moments before sunrise. "Somewhere I want to share with you," he said, and his voice had this quality I'd never heard before. Vulnerable, almost scared. We drove for 40 minutes in comfortable silence, the kind you can only have with someone when words aren't necessary. The city fell away behind us, replaced by winding roads and dense forest. He kept glancing at me, then back at the road, like he was second-guessing this decision with every mile. When we finally pulled onto a dirt road barely visible between the trees, my heart started beating faster, not from fear, but from the weight of what this moment seemed to mean to him. He parked in a small clearing, killed the engine, and just sat there for a moment, hands still on the steering wheel. "I've never brought anyone here," he said quietly. "Not a single person. Not my ex-girlfriend of 2 years. Not my best friend since elementary school. No one." The morning air was cool when we stepped out, carrying that earthy smell of dew and pine. He reached for my hand, his palm slightly sweaty, and led me down a narrow trail. Neither of us spoke. The only sounds were our footsteps on the soft ground and the distant rush of water getting louder with each step. Then we broke through the tree line, and I stopped breathing. The river curved through a small canyon, creating this perfect semicircle of water that caught the first rays of sunrise like liquid gold. Smooth rocks lined the shore, worn down by centuries of current into natural seats. Wildflowers I couldn't name grew in clusters between the stones, and the morning mist rose from the water's surface like something out of a dream. But it wasn't the beauty of the place that got me. It was the look on Marcus's face. He was watching me instead of the view, his expression completely open in a way I'd never seen before. Raw, hopeful, terrified, like my reaction to this place would somehow determine everything that came next between us. "Marcus," I whispered because speaking any louder felt like it would shatter something precious. "This is incredible." The tension in his shoulders released, and he smiled. This genuine, relieved smile that made my chest tight. "Come on, I want to show you something." He led me to a large, flat rock right at the water's edge. We sat down, close enough that our legs touched, and he pulled out a thermos of coffee he'd apparently packed without me noticing. "I found this place when I was 17, he started, pouring coffee into 2 cups. "Right after my dad died. I was so angry at everything, you know. The world, God, myself for not being able to fix him. I just drove, no destination, just needed to get away from everyone telling me how sorry they were, how strong I needed to be. I stayed quiet, sensing he needed to get this out. I ended up on that dirt road by accident, wrong turn, or maybe the right one, depending on how you look at it. I walked down here, sat on this exact rock, and just screamed until my throat was raw. Then I cried. Then I sat in silence for hours watching the water move." He took a sip of his coffee, eyes on the river. "This place saved me that day. It gave me permission to fall apart when everyone else needed me to be okay. After that, I kept coming back. Whenever life got too heavy, whenever I needed to think, whenever I needed to remember who I was underneath all the roles I play for other people." My throat felt thick. "Why are you telling me this?" He turned to look at me then, really look at me, and I saw everything in his eyes. "Because I'm falling in love with you, and it terrifies me. Because this place is the most honest part of me, and I needed you to see it. because I've spent my whole life being careful, protecting myself, and with you, I don't want to do that anymore." The sunrise painted his face in shades of gold and amber, and I realized I was crying. Not sad tears, but the kind that come when something shifts deep inside you, when you understand that your life is dividing into before and after this moment. "I've been so scared," he continued, his voice breaking slightly. "Scared that if I show you all of me, the messy parts, the broken parts, the parts that still grieve and doubt and struggle, you'll realize I'm not worth it. But then I thought about keeping this from you, about keeping any part of myself from you, and that felt worse. That felt like dying slowly." I set down my coffee cup and took both of his hands in mine. They were shaking. "Marcus, I'm falling in love with you too, and I'm just as terrified. But here's what I know, sitting here in this place that held you when you were breaking, this place you've protected and kept sacred, this place you chose to share with me. I know that your courage to be vulnerable is the most attractive thing about you. Not your confidence at work, not your sense of humor, not the way you look in that blue shirt I like. This honesty, this trust." He leaned his forehead against mine, and we just breathed together for a moment. The river rushed past us, indifferent to our human drama, ancient and steady. "Tell me more about this place," I said softly. "Tell me everything." And he did. He told me about the time he came here after losing his job and sat until he figured out it was actually an opportunity to start over. He told me about bringing a notebook and writing letters to his dad that he'd burn on the rocks, watching the smoke carry his words away. He told me about the winter he came here every Sunday, sitting in the freezing cold because the emptiness of the place matched the emptiness he felt inside after his mom remarried. "I'd watch ice form on the edges of the water," he said, "and I'd think about how even when things freeze, even when everything feels stuck and dead, the river underneath keeps flowing. That's what kept me going, knowing that underneath my frozen exterior, something in me was still alive, still moving." We sat there for hours. The sun climbed higher, burning away the mist, and the river changed colors from gold to silver to the deep blue-green of mid-morning. Marcus pointed out a family of ducks that apparently nested nearby every spring. He showed me where he'd carved his initials into a tree when he was 18, then felt embarrassed about it immediately after. "I almost sanded them off," he admitted with a laugh. "But then I thought, no, let them stay. Let there be proof that I was here, that I existed, even if no one ever sees it." I stood up and walked over to the tree. The initials were weathered but still visible, and something about seeing this physical mark of his younger self made everything feel even more real. I traced the letters with my finger. "I see it," I said. "I see you." When I turned around, he was right behind me, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. He cupped my face in his hands, his thumbs gentle on my cheekbones. "I was so lonely before you," he whispered. "I didn't even realize how lonely until I wasn't anymore, until I had someone who actually wanted to know me, not just the version of me that makes things easy for everyone else." "I want to know everything," I told him. "The easy parts and the hard parts, the parts you're proud of and the parts you wish you could change. All of it." He kissed me then, soft and sweet, and it felt different from every other kiss we'd shared. It felt like a promise, like a beginning. We spent the rest of the morning exploring. He showed me the best skipping stones, smooth and flat, worn perfect by the current. We tried to skip them across the water, and I was terrible at it, which made him laugh in that unguarded way that made his whole face light up. He showed me a small waterfall hidden behind an outcropping of rocks, the water cascading into a pool so clear you could see every stone at the bottom. "I used to think about bringing people here," he said, as we sat with our feet dangling in the cold water. "Friends, girlfriends, whoever, But it never felt right. This place was mine, you know? The one thing in my life that was just for me, and I was protective of it. Selfish about it, maybe. That's not selfish, I said. Everyone needs something that's just theirs, a place or a ritual or even just a thought that belongs to them alone. It's how we remember who we are. He nodded slowly. But here's what I realized last week when I decided to bring you here. Keeping this place to myself wasn't protecting it. It was protecting me. If I never shared it, I'd never have to risk someone not understanding it, not appreciating it. I'd never have to risk being disappointed. And now? Now I'm realizing that some risks are worth taking, that sharing something sacred doesn't diminish it. It amplifies it. Sitting here with you, seeing you see this place, it's like I'm experiencing it new again. Through your eyes, it's even more beautiful. I leaned my head on his shoulder, and we watched the water flow past our feet. A dragonfly landed on a nearby rock, its wings catching the light like stained glass. "Can I tell you something?" I asked. "Something I've been scared to say?" "Anything." "I've been hurt before. Really hurt. The kind of hurt that makes you want to keep everyone at arm's length forever. And when we started dating, I told myself I'd be careful. I'd protect my heart. I'd keep my expectations low." I took a deep breath. "But you make me want to be brave. You make me want to risk it. Because what we have, what we're building, it feels worth the risk of potential pain." His arm tightened around me. "I'm scared too. Every day I'm scared. Scared I'll mess this up. Scared I'm not enough. Scared that one day you'll wake up and realize you could do better." I sat up and looked at him directly. "Marcus, listen to me. I don't want better. I want real. I want honest. I want someone who takes me to their secret river spot and trusts me with their pain and their healing. That's you. That's what you've given me." We stayed until early afternoon, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his dreams of maybe buying some land like this someday, building a small cabin where he could escape. I told him about my complicated relationship with my sister, something I usually kept private. We talked about our fears for the future, our regrets about the past, and our hopes for what we were building together. As the sun reached its peak, the river took on an almost blinding brightness. Marcus stood and offered me his hand. "There's one more thing I want to show you before we go." He led me upstream, where the river narrowed and the current picked up speed. There, wedged between two large boulders, was a small waterproof box. "I started keeping a journal here," he explained, pulling out a weathered notebook. "Not regular entries, just thoughts when I visit. Lessons I've learned. Things I'm grateful for. I write them down and leave them here like the river is keeping them safe for me." He flipped through pages filled with his handwriting, and I caught glimpses of entries. "Today I learned that grief doesn't have a timeline. Grateful for morning coffee and second chances. Note to self, being strong doesn't mean never falling apart." Then he turned to a blank page and pulled out a pen. "Today," he said, writing as he spoke, "I brought the person I'm falling in love with to my sacred place. I was terrified, but it was worth it. She saw me, really saw me, and didn't run. She met my vulnerability with her own. I'm learning that love isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about trust. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be brave." He signed it with the date and carefully placed the notebook back in the box, sealing it tight. "Someday," he said, "when we're old and gray, I want to come back here and read through all of these. I want to remember this day, this feeling, this moment when everything changed." The walk back to the truck felt different, lighter somehow despite the weight of everything we'd shared. We held hands, occasionally stopping to kiss or just look at each other, amazed at what we'd built in the span of a single morning. Before we got in the truck, Marcus pulled me close. "Thank you," he said simply. For what? For being someone worth sharing this with. For making me believe in the possibility of real connection again. For seeing my sacred place and treating it with the reverence it deserves. For being you. I kissed him, tasting coffee and river water and the salt of earlier tears. Thank you for trusting me with it. For trusting me with you. As we drove away, I turned back to catch one last glimpse of the trail leading to the river. It looked like nothing special from the road, just a gap between trees that you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. But I knew what lay beyond it now. Beauty and healing. Pain and hope. The secret geography of the man I was falling in love with. And I understood something fundamental in that moment. Love isn't just about sharing your best self. It's about sharing your sacred places, the parts of you that you've protected and hidden and kept safe. It's about saying, this is me, all of me, the broken and the beautiful, and hoping the other person says, I see you, and I'm not going anywhere. Marcus reached over and took my hand as we merged onto the highway, heading back toward the city, back toward our regular lives. But we weren't the same people who'd driven out that morning. We'd crossed a threshold. We'd chosen vulnerability over safety. We'd chosen each other. So, he said with a small smile, what's your sacred place? Where's the spot that only you know about? And I realized that he'd just given me the greatest gift, not just sharing his place with me, but asking about mine, making space for my secrets, my healing, my private geography. I'll show you, I promised, soon. Because that's what love is. It's reciprocal vulnerability. It's matching courage with courage. It's saying, you showed me yours, now I'll show you mine, and trusting that in the exchange, you'll both become more whole. The river keeps flowing whether we're there to see it or not. But now when Marcus visits, he won't be alone. And when I think about sacred places, I won't just picture physical locations. I'll picture the space between two people brave enough to be real with each other. That's the most sacred place of all.